Hello everybody, we're live. And again, with the wrong camera. All right, so you got to see my finger up close. But there's no secrets in that finger, I'm afraid. But welcome everybody. As you can see, I didn't get my webcam yet. I don't know where it is. Nobody knows where it is. It got here in Spain, I think, and then who knows? Who knows what happened to it? Well, hello everybody. I was actually recording a video for the Inside the Song series about Dawn Over the City. I think you'll like it. It's coming out in a while though, probably July something. And so, because I'm doing my homework so that, you know, there's always going to be videos coming. So I see you all in there. Indrajit, hello. Alex, I already sent you all a thank you for your contributions. It's very much appreciated. And while we wait for people to come in, just a few announcements. As always, welcome to today's masterclass. If you're watching this and you're new, welcome. Every Saturday at 6:30 Central European Time and 12:30 New York time and 9:30 Tijuana time. That's what one of our friends here told me to say instead of LA. So those are the time zones. We're always live 6:30 every Saturday. And I'll teach you a few things about, you know, anything I find that could be useful for you. Scales, chord, technique, you know, there's so many things we can look at. And as always, I accept suggestions, so please do use the comments or the chat. Today, we're going to look at minor modes, because last week we did the major modes, which people found very interesting, I think. And so we're going to complement it today with the minor ones. Please, before we begin, do subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff, because it's helping out the channel a lot to reach more and more people. And that's kind of why we're doing this, to help people out from all over the world. So, you know, the more people are here, the better for everyone. Thanks a lot. And, oh, hello, there is Art. Thanks for the videos you sent. Oh, those were great. They look great. You know, Colorado is such a great place. You're from Colorado, aren't you? Tijuana, what's up? Did you catch Tijuana? I just said Tijuana instead of LA. So check it out after the masterclass is over. Go back and I did what you asked. Is it me or connections are getting dropped? It's working here, I think. Let me guys know how it goes. I get going, and then if there's any problems, let me know. From Canada, that's right. I'm sorry. Well, those are beautiful places you showed me in those videos. All right, so remember last week we did major modes, and I think a lot of you enjoyed it. Thanks again so much for your contributions and donations. I got them later, and they're very much appreciated. Even just to know that you guys find it useful, it's amazing, and it's why we're doing it. Good on your side. All right, Alex, it might be your connection. Okay, great. Let me know if it drops. You know, this is not going to be a proper masterclass if we don't get any kind of technical problems. Yeah. All right. So, minor modes. Minor modes are, again, we're not going to get into the whole parallel versus relative scales, because we've done that last week. You know, I prefer you guys watch it and see it from the side of parallel scales, which means we start with a major or minor scale and then modify that scale to get the modes, instead of thinking that every mode is a major scale starting on a different note, because, you know, there's all kinds of problems related to it. But we got a good discussion going on the last video with, you know, with some of the comments, so it's always interesting for me to see. But, you know, I do think that if you, whatever you want to call it, if you look at scales as each mode as a scale, you'll be able to control it a lot better. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. If you guys have any questions about it, you know, I'll be happy to answer. But I'll assume that we all agree that we should look at modes as their own scales, right? We can't escape the fact that all the modes are related to other scales, of course, as we know. F Lydian is C major, you know, G mixolydian is also C major, but we should be able to look at any Lydian scale, any mixolydian scale, any minor scale, you know, as their own world. All right, so this is where I'm starting from. If you guys are new to these master classes, I kind of always focus on that. All right, so last week we did Ionian, which was the major scale, and we did Lydian and Mixolydian. Remember, we only changed one note, the 4th and the 7th. But today we're actually going to start, because instead of starting again from the major scale, we're going to start from the very basic minor scale. All right, so let's do that really quickly. And then from the minor scale, we'll move on to the other minor modes. There's one mode that's kind of always left out, and we're going to include it, poor thing. Today we're going to take care of it. It's called the Locrian mode, and it's not really strictly a minor mode, but it certainly is not a major mode. So we're going to consider it a minor mode, even if we know it's a diminished mode, and we'll get into it. So today we'll finish all the diatonic modes. We started last week, as I said, with Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. And today we're going to finish with Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian, of course, the minor scale, and Locrian. So these are our 7 diatonic modes. Diatonic, again, really quickly, is one way of organizing the tones of the scale, where we have intervals of whole step and half step in the same sequence. So it's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. You can start anywhere you want on that sequence, but that is the sequence, all right? So this do not include the melodic minor, the harmonic minor, the symmetrical scales. They're great, and they have great modes, and we'll look into them, but they're not included in today's masterclass, okay? So strictly diatonic modes. As always, these masterclasses, I try to do the best I can. I really prepare them, but there's no way for me to know what level you're at and what you know. So I'll try to be as clear as possible without going too low in level, you know, because a lot of you I know some of you are great musicians, and I try not to go too high, right, without warning you. And so if there's anything you don't understand, please go back, watch them a lot of times. And remember, our motto here is that you are your own best teacher. And it's really true. Whatever you find here that is useful, great. If it's not useful, drop it, get back to it later. Don't trust YouTube for your, you know, for your education. YouTube is great, but it's all kind of disjointed. So don't even trust my videos or my masterclasses. These are just to point you in the right direction, help you out, of course. My videos of Inside the Song are to give you ideas, precise ideas, and very specific on certain things. But really, you owe it to yourself to do the work. Even if you have a teacher, you are 99% responsible of your progress. So please do keep that in mind. It will kind of intimidate you at first a little bit, but it will give you great power when you realize that it really comes down to how much work you put in and how smart you work. All right, sorry for the rant. I know worst advice is advice, but there you go. Let's start with the minor scale. Okay, as always, leave your comments if you want. You know, I'm very happy to see movement in there, but I might get to them later. All right, so the minor scale is the first scale we have to talk about. Is maybe after the major scale the most important scale in music. It's very it's very common in classical music, but of course it's extremely common in rock music, especially the modern, kind of modern, from rock and roll, classic rock, heavy metal, a lot of styles of music that are more modern and based in rock and roll. They're really based on the minor scale, even more than the major, but both of them are really popular. And the minor scale has its issues, of course, that have been solved somehow through the centuries, actually. And so a good command of different minor scales is extremely important. And today's scales go a long way towards it, all right? So the minor scale has a formula, as every other scale. And we're going to start comparing it to the major scale. The major scale, remember last week we said, if you just give a number to each note of the major scale, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our common ground. That's where we start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is a major scale. That's where we begin, okay? So, first things first, how do we create a minor scale? All you have to do is start from a major scale, and we lower the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th note. So in the case of C major, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, extremely simple, and it sounds like this. By the way, let me know if this sounds all right. If we have, look, I just said it. Let me put it a bit louder. All right, so C major. We go to the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th note, and we lower them a half step. The E becomes E flat, so C, D, E flat. F and G remain the same. The A becomes flat. The B becomes flat. And the C. With a root underneath. Right, so it's a classic sound, of course, extremely popular. You've heard it a million times. So this is the starting point of today's lesson. It's a major scale with the third, sixth, and seventh lower a half step. Instead of doing it in C today, we're going to do it in A, because A minor has all natural notes. Okay, so I'm going to go over it really quickly. If we start from A major has 3 sharps, and it sounds like this. Let's play it a bit higher. Let's do it here. Okay, so you can see it. So we go A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. See, I have three sharps. The C sharp, the F sharp, the G sharp, and the A. Okay? Now, the formula says that I have to lower the third, the sixth, and the seventh to make it minor. So it's great, because I end up with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A. As you can see, these are all natural notes. And this is why we're going to use it today as our basis and our starting scale, because it's easier to talk about. But of course, you should be able to know and control and play all minor scales all over the fretboard. All right? So, are you guys hearing me all right? Is everything good? Please let me know. I mean, I'm kind of sitting here. I'm hoping that everything is working. And anyway, the minor scale goes like this. So, remember last week we said that the half steps are where it's at with scales. The half steps tell you how things sound, how and certain notes tend to push towards other notes or to fall back onto other notes. And so, okay, great, thanks. And so the idea is, if I look at the minor scale, I have, always in A, I have a half step between the minor third and the second, and one that goes to the flat 6. And now these notes are very charged with minor sound. Check this out. And this one. So this is really the sound of the minor scale, and it comes from the minor third and the minor sixth. And these notes tend to push downwards because they're half step away from the previous note. So see, they tend to kind of work their way back. You don't have to do it, of course, but that's what the notes kind of ask for. And as a matter of fact, making music interesting is playing with this need for resolution and withdrawing it for a while and then giving it later. All right? And then there's a flat 7. And the flat 7 is a bit of a problem for minor scales because it doesn't push toward the root. Remember the major scale? That major 7th really pushes towards the root, right? If I'm in A major, this G sharp is extremely unrestful. It needs to go to the root. Now, if I play minor, this G doesn't do that, right? So there's a whole host of problems with this, and they're solved with the harmonic minor and the melodic minor, but we're not going to get into it right now, all right? So for now, we're only talking about this scale, but be mindful that this note here, the G, doesn't really push towards the root. So you might have issues when you're trying to move from a section of a song to another, or to close a song, or to go from verse all the way up to a chorus. It's a bit harder to make the song move without that note. But there are solutions, just not today, okay? The other thing we should look at, if you remember last week, we talked about how the fourth, the F in C, was a note of a strange dissonance. It was a bit strange, and it sounded kind of weird. And the Lydian mode kind of took care of that. Well, in minor, the fourth now doesn't really create any problems. Okay, let's play it over a root. It doesn't quite create any problems because now it's a whole step away from the third and not a half step. As you see, half step and whole steps is where a lot of the musical information is stored, where these half steps are. So by moving the half step down with the third, the fourth is free to ring out, and it sounds a lot smoother than in major. So the fourth is a great note for minor melodies, for example. All right? There's not much to say about the minor scale. One thing you should know, of course, is how you harmonize the minor scale, which means if I want to write chord progressions that work with minor scales, what chords should I use? In major, the word major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. In minor, extremely important, you remember this and you memorize it, is minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major. Okay, and it's, if we do it in A, it's A minor, B diminished, G major, D and E are minor, F major, G major, and A minor. These are your 7 chords. They work, of course, with every minor scale as long as you play the right notes. These are the chords you build on the 7 degrees of the scale. All right. So, is there a certain chord that give us the minor sound? Well, first of all, of course, A minor. A minor. For those of you who know the modes, you know that A minor works with every minor mode. But the thing is that just the same as major, minor is a sound that is extremely ingrained in our ears because we hear it all the time. We've heard it since we were children, and a lot of songs were either major or minor, so we have it in our ear. And so whenever we hear a minor chord, our ear tends to fill it up with this scale. Not this one, for example. It's not what you imagine. What you imagine is a regular minor scale. So A minor, of course, is a great chord to play your minor scale over. There are extensions to that chord that bring in a little bit of color, but they don't essentially change it. For example, A minor 7th. A minor 7th, a beautiful chord. Okay. And this chord is the same. It works great for A minor. It's very minor sounding, and as long as you play your minor scale over it, no surprises, and it sounds perfect. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. I'm going to play an A minor 7th chord. So it's A, we play C, E, and G. And over this chord, you'll hear how minor this sounds. Big tensions here. It's kind of cool and easy to listen to. There are some chords that are more specific to the mode, and one of them is the minor flat 6 chord. The reason is that it's a minor. Let me just play it for you here, like this. Another version that I like a lot is playing it here. A is not the best key to do it, but this chord, it's a minor chord, it's an A minor chord, but it has an F. And that F is the flat 6, which is one of the key notes of minor. Okay, so this is a great chord to play, especially if you want to be a bit more ambiguous with your scales. Maybe you want to, play fewer notes, but you want to make sure that it sounds minor. This is a great chord, the minor flat 6. Then, of course, the minor 9 chord. There's even dominant chords without the third, they work, right? So if I play an A sus4, A7 sus4, yeah, this chord, sorry, this chord is good for minor because it doesn't have a major third. We took it out. It's a sus4, and it works. So, going over it again: A minor 7th, A minor flat 6, A minor 9 works great. A7 sus4 works, and pretty much A minor 11, A minor 13. Anything that works with the notes of the minor scale. And that's pretty much it for minor. If you have any questions, please write them down. But otherwise, it's a pretty simple scale, right? The next minor mode is called Dorian, And the Dorian mode is known as the second mode because it's the one that's built on the second degree of a major scale. But again, we're going to look at it differently. We're going to look at it its own scale. And so starting from a minor scale, we do it in A again. Starting from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Starting from this simple scale, we just change one note and we reach the Dorian mode. The Dorian mode is found by raising the sixth note of a major scale. So if I'm playing A, B, C, D, E, the F is my sixth note, and instead of playing an F natural, like in the minor scale, I bring it up 1/2 step. It still sounds minor, of course. We have the minor third that makes it minor. But then we have this F sharp, which elevates the tension, right? Listen to the minor. Dorian. It's a beautiful mode. I like it a lot. It's very useful for rock music. It works great over minor chords. It works great in a lot of contexts, and we'll look at some later. And it's a bit closer to major, all right, because we are raising the sixth. And this F sharp comes from the A major scale. It was there when we did A major. And so it's a bit brighter, it's a little happier sounding, and it's certainly closer to that side than regular minor. It reminds me a lot, for example, of Mixolydian. Basically, Dorian is a Mixolydian scale, but minor. That's really the sound of Dorian. And it's just a great mode. I use it a lot. I use it a lot in conjunction with Mixolydian. There's a Inside the Song coming pretty soon that where I use both Mixolydian and Dorian at the same time. It's a great mode, and it's very important in jazz music, because in jazz music, pretty much everything you hear over a minor seventh chord, it's considered a Dorian chord. It's very rarely you see a regular minor scale or even Phrygian. Usually minor chords are considered Dorian and you play Dorian over them. Okay, so it's a very important mode. The specific notes that are important, of course, the third, because it says it's minor. The sixth is incredibly important, is the one that's borrowed from the major scale. Bright, open sounding, is hopeful, is a hopeful note if you want to give hopeful tones to your melodies. You know, we all come up with different words, but you know what I mean. And the seventh stays the same, still doesn't push. You know, the seven, it still doesn't push you towards the root. Okay, it's still kind of a flat sounding seventh. And that is a problem sometimes, but it is the sound of the mode. Okay, what chords can we use in this mode? Well, first of all, you have to again know how to harmonize the scale. So if I want to play the chords of Dorian, I have to use the right chords in the right sequence. And the order is this, is minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, major. Okay, so again in A minor, I play A minor, B minor, I play C and D are major, then I play E minor, F sharp diminished, G major, and A minor. These are my 7 chords of the Dorian scale. So if I want to play a chord progression that's Dorian, I would probably start with A minor, right? That's the 1 chord, and then I would follow this series of chords. Okay, so it's a bit different, of course, than the regular minor chords. Otherwise, you'll be playing A minor. Okay, chords that sound Dorian. Well, those chords will usually have a 6, the natural 6, because that's the note that differentiates it. So if I play a regular A minor chord or A minor 7, A minor 9, you know, all these chords really, for them, it makes no difference what you play over them because they fit both both minor and Dorian. But when you play a minor 6 chord, which means that is a, let me play it here in A, is a minor 7th chord with a major 6. Now this chord can only be Dorian. Okay, I'm gonna play it for you with the pad and then I'll play over it. So if I play just a regular A minor chord, all right, no 6 for now, I'm just gonna play A minor. Let me do it in an inversion that sounds a bit better. Standard A minor, and I play A Dorian over it. This chord doesn't have a 6, so it doesn't matter, I can do whatever I want. I could play minor or Dorian. And here's Dorian over this chord. This is the note, the F sharp. So every time you see me hit an F sharp, this is the Dorian scale. If I played minor, Dorian, minor, Dorian, okay? Again, this chord does not give me the mode. I'm imposing the mode over it. The chord is just a normal minor chord. Now, what if I play a chord that suggests Dorian? So I would play the same chord, A minor, but I would put a 6 in it. Okay, so I would put the F sharp inside this chord. So it would go something like, let me see something that sounds good. Okay, I'll do it like this. All right. Am I doing it right? Yeah. Okay, this is good. Okay, so now I cannot play minor over this because my F in minor would sound like crap over this F sharp. It would sound like this. Okay, I need to play with the chord. The chord is very specific. So definitely a minor 6 chord is one of the key chords of Dorian. So it's a minor chord, A, C, and E, plus an F sharp. Very common chord, extremely useful. You know, you have to be able to play it. It's extremely important. Okay, learn it because it's extremely useful. Now, of course, the 6 can also appear as a 13, so I can use it over A minor 13. I can use, again, all the ones that went with minor, as long as they didn't have a flat 6. So I can use A minor 9, I can use A7 sus4, anything that doesn't interfere with my major 6, okay? It's a beautiful mode and extremely important, so work on it. All right, if you have questions, I'll keep an eye out because I know we're getting deep now. And we move on to our next mode, which is Phrygian. Now, you all know about Phrygian. It's a strange sounding mode, very exotic. But it's a strange mode, of course, because of the sound. The formula for this mode, by the way, is the 3rd mode of a major scale. So if we are in C, it would be the mode that starts on E. So it would be E, F, G, A, B, C, D. That's the mode. But because we're working in A minor, we're going to modify A minor to make it Phrygian. So here's my A minor scale. And now I can lower the 2nd note of the scale to get Phrygian. So instead of playing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, I would play A, B flat, and the rest is the same. C, D, E, F, G, A. That's right. Over a root, it sounds like this. Okay, I don't need to tell you what note is important here. Again, it always corresponds to a half step. Let me see your questions. Let me just finish. I'm going to finish Phrygian and then, but it's just good to know that you guys are there. I know you're all taking notes, but So all right, I'll definitely be covering your questions. Okay, so A Phrygian, extremely important. The B flat that we just used to make it Phrygian. The rest of the scale is the same. You have a minor third that makes it minor. You have a fourth and fifth that are normal. And then you have the flat 6 and the flat 7 that are still there from minor. So it's definitely 100% a minor chord, right? And it's even more minor than minor. But it's also a bit descriptive for me. This scale is kind of like when you use it, everybody knows you're using it. So you can be very subtle with it. It's hard to do. I try, you know, sometimes I manage it. But it's a very strong sounding mode with a very specific sound, which is the flat second, okay? So the seventh is still flat. So when I'm playing this scale, this G is still not pushing. So whatever I do with these modes, it sounds like I'm never getting rid of that problem that the seventh doesn't push. Okay, so keep it in mind. All the minor diatonic modes have this problem that they don't push towards the root. They don't resolve greatly towards the root. So keep it in mind. I know I'm repeating it, but it's important. And of course, this mode also has its own chord progression, right? The harmonization of the mode, and again is a computation of the one we use for major and for minor and for all the modes. And it's like this: it's minor, then there's two majors, then there's minor again, diminished, major, minor, and then we end up in minor again. Okay, because this mode has a B flat, all these chords have a B flat, so they agree with the chord. This is the chord progression you're going to use. The most obvious one you see is this: minor in the one, and major in the one right next to it, the half step. Okay, and the sound is very, you know, people call it the Spanish scale, or maybe it's more like an Arab thing. I don't know. It's, to me, Phrygian is so descriptive. It's really hard to use. But what chords can we use? Now, this is interesting because, of course, all the regular chords work, right? The chords of A minor. I'm going to play it for you over A minor, just so you see it. And as soon as I hit that B flat, you'll know it. Obvious, and it's hard to talk about specific sounding Phrygian chords because the note that makes the Phrygian is the flat second, and it's a very dissonant note when you stack it over a regular chord. So one way to work around it is to make it a sus flat 9 chord. So in the case of A, we would play A. Then we would play, let's do it this way. We would play the fifth, and then we look for a B flat, and that's it. And we stop. We don't add this C, the third, because it's too dissonant. It's very dissonant. So sometimes we just use the sus flat 2 chord, which is root, flat 2, and fifth. This gives the flat second a little breathing room. You know, it doesn't create all this extreme dissonance, and so you can use a chord. Otherwise, it's impossible. It sounds so strong, and so it's a good chord you should look at. It's the sus flat 2 or sus flat 9 chord. So root, flat second, and fifth, and you probably want to space them. So you might want to have the root, then the fifth, and then the flat 9. Okay, don't put them too close to each other because they're so tense. Okay, and skip the third. All right. So the same as we did for major scales. When, remember that we talked about the circle of fifths and how C major was the neighbor of Lydian with one sharp, and Mixolydian with one flat. They were all three next to each other. Well, the same thing happens with minor. If we start with A minor, which on the circle of fifths is at 12 o'clock, no sharps and no flats, A Dorian, which has one sharp, it will be right next to it. Okay, A Dorian would be right there where G major was. And then if we do A Phrygian, it will be one step backwards in F major. Okay, or better said, it's in A Phrygian, right? So what's so interesting about it is that there are certain chords that will cover all three modes. Okay, so for example, if I play an A minor seventh chord or an A minor chord, I could actually go through all these modes at the same time. I'm going to demonstrate it for you. I'm going to play A minor, but it would work with an A minor seventh, which is a bit more complex. But let's play A minor. This is not A minor. Wait. There you go. Now I can go from A minor and then raise the F to F sharp to make it Dorian. I can go back to minor by lowering the F sharp to a natural F. And then I can go to Phrygian by lowering the B to B flat. Or I can move, faster between them, and I'll still be able to do it over this chord. Now I won't announce it, just listen to it. It's a bit strong sometimes, especially when you go from Phrygian to Dorian, because they're further away from each other. But you can actually cover all these modes with the most common chords, A minor seventh, and so on. As always, if you want to use a chord for more than one mode, stay away from the notes that you just changed to the formula to make it Dorian, the sharp six, or Phrygian, the flat second. Okay, so these are the three modes of the minor modes. There's one poor mode that always gets left out. It's called Locrian. And Locrian is the final mode. So starting in C major, it will be like playing C major from B to B. B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And I'm just going to show it to you from A again. Okay? It doesn't matter. There's not really one key that is more, that is easier with Locrian. But let's do it in A again. Starting from A minor. We lower the second again, just like Phrygian, but we also lower the fifth. And this makes this mode is not minor because it's diminished, because it has a flat 5. Of course, because it's the 7 mode. It's the 7th degree, and the 7th degree in a major scale is diminished. So how do we do it? Well, we take a minor scale. We lower the second, we lower the fifth. And this is the diminished chord. It doesn't sound quite as strange now, but when you put it over a chord, it does sound pretty weird. And of course, the half steps, as always, is where it's at. Focus on the flat 9. Okay, so this is the same as Phrygian, very strong pull towards the root, but also on the flat 5, and the flat 5 pulls towards the 4th. So A, B, C, D. This E flat, which is the 5th, 1, want to fall back onto the fourth, but the fourth is also a tension, so it's a really tense mode. Over a root, it sounds like this. Okay, it's kind of cool with this, but when you play chords on it, it's kind of weird because the chords are kind of weird. What notes, what chords should we use with this mode? Well, diminished, of course, a diminished triad. So in A, it would be like this. Or a very useful chord is the minor 7 flat 5 chord, or semi-diminished, or half diminished, depending how you want to call it. And this is a diminished triad with a minor 7th. I'm gonna play it for you just a second, okay? I'm gonna play, yeah, I'm just gonna use a regular diminished chord, okay? So I'm gonna play A, C, E flat, and then the G, which is a 7th. I'm gonna play a half diminished. And then I play the Locrian. But it's a bit strange. The chord progression for this mode is diminished major, minor, minor, major, major, and minor, because it's the same as every other mode, just starting from the 7th degree. So diminished major, minor, minor, diminished major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and that's it. Okay, these are the 7 notes. What else? There's not much else about this specific mode. This is it. The harmony is pretty cool, so if you like diminished chords, is the mode to know. Now I'll certainly read your questions, but before that, do you remember about the trick with the pentatonic that we did with the major scales? That was one of the favorite things, I think, in the last masterclass. And so today is the same thing. One good trick is that if the difference between Dorian and minor and between Phrygian and minor is the 6th and the 2nd, that these are the notes we changed to create the minor modes, it means that when we create a minor pentatonic, which is nothing but a minor scale without the 2nd and the 6th, because that's how you create a minor pentatonic. You take a minor scale and you drop the 2nd and 6th. There's no B and there's no F. And B and F are exactly the notes I need to make Phrygian and Dorian. So the same as we did last time, you can use the pentatonic minor scale as a hub, right? Because you can go from the minor pentatonic, you can take out the B and the F and then put them back in. And if you put back in the regular B and F, it would be a minor scale. If you put in a B flat and an F, it would be a Phrygian scale. If you put back in the B natural and the F sharp, it would be a Dorian scale. Okay, this of course doesn't work with Locrian because Locrian doesn't have a 5th. We need it has a flat 5, but the pentatonic has a regular 5th. So this only works with the minor modes. But again, check this out. If I play A minor or A minor 7th, because it's shared by all the modes, I can go like this. And I can play minor pentatonic over this. Let me play somewhere you all know, right? Because I always tend to move around a lot, so I'm sorry. Now, this scale, I can put back in those B's and F's. Pentatonic. Minor. But what if instead of putting back in the B's and F's, I put back in the B and the F sharp? Back to pentatonic. Back to Dorian. And what if I put back in the B flat and the F natural? That's Phrygian. I do, you can still see the shape underneath it all. Right? It's always there, no matter if I play minor, if I play Dorian or Phrygian. You always see 5/8, 5/7, 5/7, 5/7, 5/8, 5/8. They're included in the pentatonic. And so again, as always, it's like if your chord progression allows it, which often it doesn't, but if it does, like a long chord, like a long vamp over a certain chord, you can certainly go in and out of the pentatonic and come out in Phrygian. And maybe it's too abrupt to go from Phrygian to Dorian straight away, so you can go back to pentatonic, stay around for a little while, then shoot out to Phrygian, and your ear will have will have become accustomed to the pentatonic again, so it doesn't mind you taking out that F sharp and putting in this B flat. It doesn't care because it's been going around the pentatonic for a while and it's been reset. Okay, so it's really useful if your chord progression allows it. And finally, as last week, these modes are also useful to introduce key changes. So if you go from A minor to, for example, E minor has the same F sharp as A Dorian, so you can kind of start introducing the A Dorian right before the switch, for example, or the last chord, and this kind of gets your ear accustomed to a new key, and so the change doesn't become too obvious or too abrupt or maybe too unmusical. Okay, so it's another way of using the modes. All right, so I was feeling a little bit sick today, not with the virus, but I hope I was clear. I made some notes, so I follow them because I'm a bit spaced out, but hopefully it made sense. And if it didn't, please forgive me and let me know in the questions. I'll be more than happy to answer. So is there a particular book that you would recommend that helps complement what you're covering? On modes, well, one great book, as always, is the Goodrick mode, because it covers pretty much everything. It's a bit advanced, and but I suggest everybody should get the Goodrick mode. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff about modes out there, like you search books on modes, I'm sure there's plenty of them, but it really sometimes, I saw one that I think a student here at the school had, and it kind of made everything so complicated, right? And the modes are really not that complicated. My suggestion to you, Tijuana border jumper, is that before you get lost or confused by the modes, you should try to really get your major and minor scales like 100% down, like no questions, no doubts, no hesitation. And that makes everything a lot easier. I see a lot of people who are having trouble with the modes. They're just trying to study them at the same time as their major and minor, and it's not the way to do it. Major and minor are where everything starts. Okay, so I'll think of something, but Goodrick, The Advancing Guitarist, is always a good book about everything. The thing is, it's a lot of work though. Indrajit, what's up? Do minor and major pentatonics have their own chords? They could have their own chords, but they become quite boring because you take out two notes, and these two notes are the root, the third, and the fifth of three other chords, right? So you lose a lot of chords, and usually the consensus is that major pentatonics and minor pentatonics, careful, we're not talking about the minor pentatonics over a blues progression, right? We're talking diatonic, we're talking using them as major and minor scales. The consensus is that you use the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic over chord progressions that are major or minor. So they're just, you only take out the two notes in the scale and in the melody, but not necessarily on the chords. So I wouldn't, you can try building chords only with the 5 notes of the pentatonic. It gets pretty sparse, so, but you can try. And Alex says, amazing lesson, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It's, I'm glad it helps. And sometimes, it's a little harder than other times, but it's always fun to be here. Can I help you with anything else? Are there any other questions? I'll be happy to, to hang out for a little while. And sorry. So maybe I'll wait a couple of minutes, and announcements in the meantime. Of course, I don't know if you guys are watching them and if you enjoy them, but the Inside the Song videos, where I take one of my songs and use it as an example and as a real life application of a certain musical idea or concept or technique. These these videos, I've recorded quite a few of them. There's like 4 or 5 already recorded, and I hope you'll enjoy them because I think they're extremely useful. Not because they're my songs, but because they show you something that's rarely shown nowadays, which is how to use what you learn. Because you know, people are making all these videos, me included, of course, but learn this, check this out, and here's a chord, but you never know exactly what to do with them. And so I'm not telling you what to do with things, but I'm showing you at least one option of something you can do. You don't even have to like the song. That's a good thing. And I think they're extremely useful. So give them a shot. And they're getting better. You know, the old ones are a bit long, and now they're getting a lot better and to the point. So keep an eye out on Tuesdays. Okay, I think you'll enjoy them. And that is our same amazing lesson. Well, thank you. Sometimes you think things are not as great, and then people think they're great. Like, has it ever happened to you in concerts? Like, you play a show and you think like, wow, this is the best show I ever played, and then you go out into the audience and they're like, okay, well, yeah, it was great, you know. And sometimes you think everything sucks and you can't hear yourself and your amp blows up and you're playing on your backup rig and it sounds like crap, and then you go out into the audience and everybody's like, wow, that was amazing, you know. I've never seen you play like that. So yeah. What's my favorite food in Dragit? Well, Indian food, actually. I'm not saying it just to blow smoke up your butt, but it is one of my favorite food. I love, of course, Italian food, being from Italy, but pretty much everything. I've been vegan, vegetarian for 16 years, maybe more, but I enjoy all kinds of food, you know. Yeah. And thanks much for this. It's great to learn the modes and their characteristic sound and how to use them and choose the chords for them. Well, that is art. That's great to hear. That's why we're doing this. So I'm happy it was useful. And so yeah, if you have any more questions, there's one thing I also want to talk about. Next week, I won't be around to make the video. So that we have 2 options. One, we can skip a week. 2, I can record it live. I can record the thing here in the studio. I will record it all straight through, like today. And then I'll put it up as a premiere in YouTube, which means we can still have the chat, and wherever I am, I'll be able to connect if I can, and watch it with you guys, answer questions and stuff like that. Maybe I will try to record it, okay? Because somebody requested in the comments that I do this on a specific topic on chord progressions, modal chord progressions, and I'll try to do it, and maybe we can do it with the premiere. So you should be getting a notification maybe Thursday or Friday about it, and on Saturday 6:30. If everything goes well, I might have the video ready to go, and I'll join the chat if I can, and we can watch it together, and you can ask questions. Okay? So you love pizza as well. Yeah, good pizza is really good. So thanks a lot, guys, everyone. Thanks again for your support. Thanks for spreading the word. The channel has been going like this, slowly, but I prefer going slowly and you know, doing stuff that we all think is useful. All right? Anything live with guitar is great. Yes. Okay. Well, I'll try to do it. Today I've been learning secondary dominant chords and parallel keys. Very interesting. Would be nice to. All right, Alex, put it in the comments, because these chats, they're hard to follow sometimes. If I come back to these like a week later or 2 weeks, I have to go through the whole video. If you would like suggestions, please put them in the comments, because it's a lot easier for me to find them and to, you know, copy them to a sheet of paper, and I'll just keep notes. Okay. Your teaching is great, and thanks again. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. It's good seeing you. One day we'll be able to do this live. We'll do a masterclass in your part of the world. All right. Thanks again, and I'll see you very soon. And again, try to log on Saturday, and I will try to be there. And on Tuesday, there's a cool Inside the Song that some of you might already know what it's about, but you should enjoy it. All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.